Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Atlantic Front. I am the Jake Man, and welcome back to the show. I certainly hope you have enjoyed all of the content. It has been an exciting time within the weather enthusiasts, all of us together, all in one big grouped happy family. And we really have to, from the models, from the guidance that was down in the national level, obviously the weather enthusiasts and the people that are sharing as much information as possible on YouTube. Everyone pretty much said that Erin was going to go out to sea. There was a couple of models that got a little wonky. I think that she did wobble slightly towards the west, so there was more beach erosion and rip tides, rip currents, and obviously wave heights that were as much as 20 feet. So very excellent surfing conditions. I know that there was some surfing competitions out in Virginia Beach and in North Carolina. I am in the greater Charlotte area, just south of Charlotte in South Carolina, and it's really been a very interesting time. I know that everyone all over the country that my family all over the country, they always go, my gosh, you have a monster hurricane that is, 450 miles away from you. You must be thinking that you're going to, are you guys evacuating? But in reality, when it splits Bermuda and the Outer Banks, it really almost doesn't do anything to maybe even 50 miles off ashore. So even Raleigh didn't really get a lot of even precipitation that was involved with Erin, and she was a massive storm. So that just tells you that when she becomes isolated, even with her size, if she can stay off the coast, then damage is brought almost to zero, except for, again, for the beach erosion and all of those impacts. We have a lot to talk about. Let's go ahead and jump right in and see what we saw with Erin and what she brought to the atmosphere and what could be next. So here we have Erin down here, and she's represented right in here. And I want to bring this model up because this is really showing the ridges, and it's it's one of my favorite model guidance that really displays what I think the atmosphere is trying to tell us, and or what the potential it has to give us such valuable information. This is the MSLP. So what we'll do is, this is the GFS we're going to talk about, because obviously everybody was in an agreement. So we have Erin that does this and moves out like that. So we'll watch her do that. But before we get into that, I want to show you a couple of different things that ends up forming. So we have the low pressure that is Erin, and she swallowed up most of the southeast. You also had a conducive condition to what I call a follow pattern. So she was able to just follow all of this, thus skirting all of this warmer, drier air, getting away from wind shear. So hurricanes are going to try forever not to get involved with any type of wind shear, because that would, of course, destroy the system and stop it from allowing to eat. And we saw that when she was moving up through the Lesser Antilles, coming off of the intercoastal convergence zone into the Lesser Antilles, and then skirting over the Greater Antilles, Puerto Rico, Dominican, and then made a north jog and just moved straight up the East Coast. So when you see that level of movement, and she went like this, okay, this is where she ended up going, just like that. Now, why did that happen? Why did she do all that? Well, when she was doing this, there was nothing that was stopping her from eating. So we saw really an amazing feat that ended up happening. We saw that she was a category 2, or just kind of hovering, really not getting her act together, category 1 and 2, and then got to about here, category 3. But right around this area, right there, she broke a record for the fastest hurricane intensification to a hurricane or a Cat 5 in history. So literally between I'd say the just northeast of the Leeward Islands, moving northwest, she got into this area of really warm water, but then really got together and went crazy. And then she continued to move up here, which the only real, I'd say, thing that we were having any type of disagreements was that the GFS and the Euro had her doing this. The GFS had that. The Euro had, it was more like this, getting a lot closer, like that. And then the icon was almost like this. Like it was getting a little bit frightening and scary. So that's a little bit wider field, but I just want to let you know that the GFS stayed more east. The Euro was probably on point, which was very, very close to the Outer Banks, a big, large wind field. And the icon was a little crazy. The icon had Erin turning into a massive, massive storm. But I want to show you what she did, since that's just the historic value or the conversation based around Erin. So when we move her forward, there's a couple of things that ends up happening, which I've never really seen this. So we didn't get any real effects inland. So we're all the way up in here. So let's go ahead and paint a line. I would say nothing was felt this way of Erin. Nothing. I mean, there were no winds, no precipitation, nothing. So it really split the Carolinas, most of probably eastern Georgia, and split Virginia, and then as she moved up the coastline. Now, of course, the coastal areas were affected greatly by the wind field and the storm surge and, the beach erosion. So that's set up. What usually happens when look how size of her, when a large hurricane ends up staying off coast for the better part of 2 days, we usually get this really, really rush of very, very humid air that just kind of sits on top of us. And this being August, of course, you're talking about just this rush because, the hurricane is doing this motion, the counterclockwise type of motion, but that's why the storm surge comes, or normally the storm surge would come in on hardest here versus here because it would start to break up. But when it's dragging, that's what the storm drags the air with it, like that. So then we get a lot of the humidity and all that stuff. That didn't happen with Erin. So it had me kind of baffled because I'm thinking, how in the world does a hurricane that had category 5 style tendencies, it wasn't a category 5 off the coast, but it was for a spell, and that will churn up when a category 5 storm creates, even though if its wind field starts to spread because of wind shear or eye wall replacement cycles, you see the storm spread and get larger and larger. But what it did was it brought cooler, more stable air into the region. So this is August 22nd. So this is today. So right now you have anywhere from 15, I'd say 12 to 15 degrees less or cooler air sitting on top of us after a hurricane gets within about 400 miles of the area. A hurricane 1/5 the size of the United States. Very, very interesting. So there's only a couple of things that can do that. Now, the hurricanes tend to dominate, obviously, but in this case, the dominator was, let's go ahead and move Erin out. So we're going to see 3 things pop up right around, let's see, they were right around there. So you had Erin pops up right there. So you have Invest 99 and 90. Okay. So you can see that that's 90 and this is 99. These are the 99 invests, or I. All right. So she moves out of the way, and these are very potential. We watched these guys for a really long time thinking this was just going to be one of those, the Dexter was out here, and the next thing never really formulated, but it was impressive to see. Obviously, Erin formed. So we were just thinking that this was going to be one of those, just this circle pattern, this pattern of a pretty typical type of hurricane pathing or hurricane directions. So you see that this Azores high sits just like this, then all of these things would end up, continue because of that dominant high. It just didn't happen. So here's where it gets even more off the rails here. You see that as Erin moves out, these are supposed to form. They're supposed to turn into something. And they set out there, and the GFS says, nope. Now they says that 90 sits over here like this. So 90 moved up, 99 moved over. So 90, invest 90 basically did this, and we'll show everything like this in here in a moment. And then the 99 went like this, like this. This is where they're starting to see all this. So then we as weather enthusiasts go, all right, there's going to be 2 hurricanes out there in the Atlantic Basin. Looks like one's maybe going to make this pretty, drastic turn like Erin did. But what's going on with this? What's going on? Where's the question mark? So is the environment capable of sustaining 2 hurricanes? Or is it capable of even having any hurricanes? So you notice this high pressure sits out here. So if this high pressure is sitting out here, right like this, that's more of the Bermuda high side. So this is the Azores, and the high pressure is starting to sit out here. Now, these are going to be your high ridge, but you're also going to see not only a steering pattern, but a dominant high pressure come out of the north and dominate everything. This is where it gets really interesting. So let's see if we can keep moving her forward. So all of a sudden we see really our players, it tends to form. We can see 99 move up north like this. You can still see the formation of that, some cyclonic activity. But here we go. This is where it goes off the rails. This is late August. I mean, I'm not saying it's peak hurricane season, but my goodness, it is close. So let's discuss what this high pressure is going to do to any potential storms for the near future. So this dominant high ridge, okay, this dominant ends up becoming something that is, I would say, probably the more interesting things that are starting. If you notice up here, all the way up here in this realm, that's the end of Erin, but she's just kind of hanging around up there, which I believe is squashing this high pressure down since she didn't just exit the building. So this high pressure really doesn't have anywhere to go. So it sits up and it sits right in this zone. So if this high pressure stays like this, well, what is it covering? Look how far it covers. It covers all of the Atlantic Basin, including the MDR and the intracoastal convergent zone. Dominant high pressure or high ridge. And that's always going to be indicative. It's going to be associated with more warmer air in a clear, stable environment. A clear, stable environment does not set up or make things that are conducive to cyclonic activity forming. Well, it can certainly form, but does it get itself together? And can it really turn into something that could be considered a threat to the U.S. or to the Caribbean or the islands, all of that? So that is what we're talking about. So these lower heights, and these are going to be indicative of lower pressure, which is going to be your colder air. So your warmer temperatures are going to be more of your warmer air and your stable air, and your cooler temperatures, your purples and blues, are going to be more of your unsettled weather like clouds and storms. So this is a a rising motion. So you're seeing a lot of the obviously the hurricanes are always representative by a low, and then the highs are more of the steering mechanism. So we can kind of see how that all sets up. So what does that do? So we're sitting around August 26th, and we are going to continue to move her forward. So as we move her forward, this is now August 26th moving forward. That high pressure is still dry, sitting over the Azores, just dominating the area. Very, very warm and clear, stable air sitting over top of this. Now, the United States does warm up, or I should say the South does warm up. So you're seeing a lot of that cooler air kind of leave the building, and then that hot air sets up. But that's two, or I'd say a double high, one over the United States sitting like this, which is stable air, and another stable air sitting like this that is just legitimately saying nothing's going to form out here. And if it does, you're not going to get to play in my sandbox. So that means as we continue to move it forward, you are now seeing the high pressure. So the United States stays a little warmer, but look what happens. August 31st, a huge cold trough or a lower heights or a trough of low pressure is sitting over the United States. September 2nd, it looks to be almost like, I would say 5 to 7 degrees below normal. That high pressure is setting up just over everything. It's very, very warm. And September 2nd, you're not seeing any really cyclonic activity because of the wind shear and the trough of high pressure, or ridge of high pressure, that is ending up just damming everything down into the south and just setting up like this. And this sets up all the way through that first week in September. And then you see again more of that cooler temperatures and lower heights of that trough of low pressure that's setting up over the United States. You do see another dominant, cooler, warmer air moving through. Does that start to say there's more ability? Because watch, so now you see a little bit of a break. You're starting to see that ridge and break. There it is, right around there. So it took from August 26th for this to continue to move. We're still high. There's maybe a little bit of a break in August 30th. What I mean by break is this area starts to become a little bit more, but it's still, it's a little bit more, instability here, but very stable, warm air there. So it doesn't look like that's really anything that could be of any real importance. So again, August 30th, and there's that stable, semi-permanent high pressure sitting off there, and just gets more and more dominant. September 2nd, September 3rd, and then maybe September 3rd into that zone here, you start to see it starting to move. But, that high pressure dominates out of the north over the continental USA. And then right around here, about September 6th-ish, maybe, right around the 6th. So if you're going to look for anything with any kind of steering towards or any steering ridges that allow for the creation of a hurricane, okay, you need a couple of things, and this map shows everything I need you to see. So right here, you have this ridge that looks like this, okay? Now, just from your own eyes, you can see that this is the MDR right here, okay? Well, let's see if we can paint the MDR, right? No, that's not what I want to do. So this would be the MDR right in here, okay? MDR. So we're seeing this main development region, and once that is there, we can, let's go ahead and paint our, I don't like that blue. Let's do this. So this is the ridge like that, okay? And then you have your low pressures can set up like this because the instability of the air. This is all stable air. This is less stable air. This is all warmer and clearer and drier. And this has opportunities. These have opportunities. You can even see kind of a homegrown that sits out there because of the area. And there's another one right in there. You can see how they are setting up. So could you see something in that area that would start to form up? Now, we're getting closer to peak when you're talking about September 6th. So I would say probably September 6th through the end of maybe, I'd say September 30th. That's peak time. But you're really talking about some areas, I'd say probably, I would say maybe a good week and a half where there's not a lot of setup here. There's not a lot of a conducive environment for cyclonic development. Be that as it may, we have a couple of these invests that we want to take a look at. So let's take a look at those. We're back on the windy.com. I really like this website. It's got a hurricane tracker. It's got a temperature. You can go forward and see a lot of different variables that you can put, it out there, and you guys can see how it looks. But this is fantastic. So there's Erin. We're going to go ahead and click on Erin. And you can see, and this is really neat, how it talks about how the track was. So Monday, and then it was moving at knots and all this 52 knots, 65 knots, 104, 139. So you're talking about a category 5 here, category 3, and you can see how it moves all the way through. It's still a category 1 today at 5 p.m. I assume that's probably not the case anymore. But that's Erin, okay? So after that, we then are going to go ahead and look at 90L. All right, so we're going to take a look at the models, obviously, but 90L has this potential to really look like this. I would say probably like that. And we're going to take a look at the models as well, but really just a fish storm. And I think that there's something to be said to talk about this from the Lesser Antilles perspective, because you're always, worrying about these guys. But as of today, this thing is already north of almost any real major island. So that is 90L, tropical depression. So we are going to talk more about 99L. Now let's talk about 99L. This one is I think this one's very, very interesting, because we've already talked, and this is a perfect example of what we're seeing here. Look at all this, guys. This is that cooler air in August that's setting up like this. Look at that. Erin ran into it. You can see how it is. This cooler air is pushing down and is what steered Erin out. Obviously, there was that high out there, and that also swooped her around like that as well. But everything came into place that made Erin go out to sea. And that's what we wanted to see. So we were very, very happy about that. With this track, now you're seeing this setup of this cooler air this drier air that comes shooting down like this and then dominates the entire area. So that high really almost swallows up everything. That's why 99 is staying down here like this, and she's tracking to do this. That means that it's more of, there's a couple of models we're going to see that it's primarily going to stay south of the Lesser and the Greater Antilles, maybe going into Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, moving out to sea and being a fish storm out here. Of course, it's going to affect Central America, but that also means that there's almost this massive damming that's saying you cannot come this way. Wind shear and warm, dry, stable air says, no, you're not going to do it. And you can see this actually representative. So if that's the case, then what do the models look like with regards to 99L? So we're going to look at Invest 99, and let's take a look and see what they say. Here we have Invest 99L. So this is the GFS, the GEFS, pretty much a lot of the ensembles that are going into this. So we're currently seeing this as a hurricane the tropical depression that's sitting just like this over that. Okay, here we have the Lesser and the Greater Antilles. We have Central America, and of course South America as well. So what they're saying is that this black line is indicative of the direction that it's going to go. Remember, we have a high pressure sitting out here that's saying no, you cannot come down here. So if that's the case, then this is going to stay out here. But this is why I want to bring it to your attention. This is what I wanted to show you guys. In the last few runs have been very, very squiggly. So what I mean by squiggly is, look at this. You have a bunch of lines that are just kind of going, which direction is it going to go? So they couldn't really pinpoint it. Now, that means that there is a lot of non-uniformity or non-agreement within the models. Where it gets really interesting is how they're starting to spread this out towards like this. So now they're starting to say there's some outliers. Yes, I see their outliers. There's not many of them. They're kind of do this, but the uniformity is very, very concrete through about here. And then you just don't know what you're going to get. You get this way, you get this way, you get, this way, you get this way. You just don't know which direction you're going to get. So that means that we're all going to be watching 99. That's what the National Hurricane Center is saying. So let's see what the models are saying about 99. Let's see if anything's going on. So we're going to run through these because I think we've shown a lot of these same modeling, but I want to show you exactly where they're saying everything is. So here's our player 99 right in there, and we are moving forward. So as it moves, you're starting to see that it really doesn't have a lot of oomph for the GFS. It doesn't really say that a lot sets up. You can see it popping up throughout a lot of the time here. So it starts around here, and then it does this. All right. So you're going to watch this guy right in here. That's our player, but it's going to try to do this. Okay. And then there's the question mark here, but you're going to have to watch the green blobs. Okay. So let's go ahead and try to do this. All right. So as it moves, you can see the green blob moving. Every once in a while, you'll see the L pop back up and right around there. So I'd say we're right around the 26th. There she is. So I'd say just south of the Caribbean. And what does she do? Does she move north? There she is. So if we take a look at this, that's where we were. All those uniformed guidelines did this. Everything was like this. Okay, everything said this way. And then it stalls out right here, which is why you saw a lot of that squiggly line stuff in there. All right. So what does it do? Does it have the ability to go into the Caribbean? Does it stay south? Okay. What is it going to do? Which way is it going to go? How does it go? Does it stall out enough for it to really, gain some steam? It does get stuck over a large amount of landmass because guess what we have set up over here? A big fat high that's saying a big ridge high that's saying this in that cooler, stable air. So our hurricane or our tropical depression really has to stay along the really warm waters of the intercoastal convergence zone off of the MDR, but it never really gets a chance to set up because of that wind shear and that warm, clear, stable air that just says you're not going to form the way you want to form. Now, that's August 26th. That's really only 4 days away. So, the GFS really doesn't have a lot that goes on with all of this, except for the fact that it says that something does form down there and it's something we're going to watch. I am of the mind that this thing does have potential, but it does need to stall. So there it is here. So if we're now here, all right, that was the 26th. So from the 26th, it was here. And this is the 28th. So the 26th, it moved from the 26th to the 28th. That, my friends, is a stall pattern. So that's where the There's not a lot of agreement. So it could very well take a nice, directional turn and do this. It could very well do that. Not a lot of models are saying that, but it is not out of the realm of possibility. So this is where they think it's going to go, but it is sitting up over land. But if it wobbles just, if this high just jogs this way, or if some of this air that sets up like this, does it start to dissipate? Is there any ridging that ends up pushing out? Is this, the United States is cooler, so it's much cooler air over this as far as August is concerned. So you're not getting a lot of real humidity and tropical. August can be very oppressive down here in the South. So we don't know, but we are watching. So the euro, I don't think has. Again, I'm seeing some pretty new runs here. The euro, let's go ahead and take a look at the euro for you guys. So the euro has Erin leaving. So she is here and leaving the building. But our formation is right here. So still agreement. Everybody says that there is 99L. And we are going to take a look and see how it starts to move. Does it move like this? We don't know. Let's see. So we move it, and it holds up slightly, but then there's some high pressures that start. Again, this is that ridge. That ridge. Look how far down it comes. Look at that. Look at that. That is wild. You can see that indicative by these red lines. So it's literally just pushing everything down. Everything is staying down south, which usually means a lot of these MDRs can just make a beeline right for the Caribbean. But for right now, it's not showing that. Let's see what the euro does going forward. And there it goes into the Caribbean. Our setup is right here now. So the GFS had it more here like that. The euro is a little bit further north. But it stalls out again, folks. It stalls out. And there it is. So does it split? Looks like there's two opportunities. So the 25th, and it stays just like that, staying still right over Central America. Not moving, not moving, not moving, setting up. So it hovers. All right. It even splits numerous times. It kind of sits on this, never really getting its act together. But look at the ridge, even for the euro, what it's saying, way down here. Not allowing any real development to occur. Let's move it forward. As we continue to move forward, we still, August 27th, it's now over Belize and, just south. So they're saying that it's going into more of the Mexico into the Pacific. And there it is. So the euro has it setting up through the 26th, literally the 26th through the 30th. They're saying that this thing sets up here and just meanders. That's what they're saying. That is why you see a lot of those, you see it on, chances of development. So you could see like a 40% chance or a 50% chance, depending on over the days. That's what you see over this. And you're going to see a lot of this because that area can home grow. So you could see some stuff kind of, all this thing needs to do is move right into here, into the Bay of Campeche. And once it does that into the Gulf, it can do all kinds of stuff in there. Or it could just go out to sea like this and just, be a fish storm out to the Pacific, hopefully not messing with Hawaii. So all the rest of the models have a very good agreement that this is going to it's just too late. It's just too early to really talk about this. But where everything does agree wholeheartedly is this high right here is just dominating the North Atlantic. That is where the agreement is currently. So we are going to obviously watch 90, Invest 90. We're going to watch Invest 99. We're going to watch Erin leave the building. And we're going to watch to see if any of this ridge high pressure starts to break down. And we showed a little bit of the areas where it could break down a little bit. But please, come on back. Let's talk a lot about this stuff. Leave a like, subscribe, enjoy yourself here, comment, tell me I'm crazy. But so far, we're 1 for 1. We were really good with Erin. The models really showed a lot of promise, and we've used AI, we've used Icon, we've used GFS, we've used our own noggin. So come on back. Let's have some fun. Let's go ahead and talk a lot about some weather. And, you know, if you're in the Southeast like me, you're seeing some really nice weather. Enjoy it out there, because who knows if we're ever going to get a summer this cool in August again. I am the Jake Man. This is the Atlantic Front. Come on back. We'll see you real soon.